Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll have this is para 1 and then this is para 2. Okay, so now what? Now to my paragraph 1, I want some margin bottom. So what do I need to do here is P1 margin bottom, I'll give 200 pixels. So it leaves some margin on the bottom. So the next element will start after 200 pixels. Is this clear? Similarly, I'll add margin top. So margin is added on the top. Are these four clear? Margin top, bottom, left and right. Okay. So now if I just give margin like this without giving any direction, if I give 50 pixels, so this will be added on all the four sides. Okay. It is not added because exactly I did not give ID for this. I'll give P1. So now margin is added on all the four sides. Okay. So now what we can also do here is we can also give borders to our elements, to our HTML elements. We can also have borders. Okay. So now what we need to do here is first we need to decide the border style. Okay. So here I'm giving border style as solid. Okay, so we can also add borders by using this border style property. Border style I've given as solid. Okay, so there are different types of border styles. What we can do is I can have dashed border style dashed. So we have a different type of border here, right? So now we can also have double. Okay, so we have this type of border. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see, but this is a different type of border. We have double borders here. Okay. Is this clear to everyone how to add borders? So now what I'm going to do, we can also decide the width of the border. Okay. So here for now, I'll just give solid border width. Here I'll give 10 pixels. Can you see width has increased? Okay. So now I'll remove this. What I'll do is what we can do is if you notice, did I give any color for my border? No. So by default, the color of the border is the color of the text. Okay. See, what is the color of this text? Black, right? Whatever is the color of the text, the color of the border by default is that. Okay. So now what I'll do is to my text, I'll give color as red. Can you see? Borders color is also red now. Okay. By default, the border color is the color of the text. Okay. So now what I'll do is if you want a different color for your border, what you can do? Border color. So border color, I'll give green. Now you can also decide the border color. Okay. But by default, what is the color of the border? Exactly. By default, the color of the border is the color of the text. Okay. Right. So now what I'll do is I'll try to give border width as 20 pixels. If you notice, border width is not being applied. Exactly. So border style is mandatory. Okay. So you should always have a border style. This thing is mandatory. You should always give this border style. So here I'm giving solid. Okay. This is the mandatory thing. And these are optional. Border width and border color are optional, but border style is mandatory. Okay. Is it clear to everyone? Yes. Is this border clear to everyone? How to have borders? So now what I'll do is So now I want to have something like this. I said that if I give margin as 10 pixels, this will be applied on all the four sides, right? So now after this 10 pixels, here if I give space and give 20 pixels, what do you think will happen? So do you guys think I will get any error, or what do you think will happen? If I have a space after this and if I give 50 pixels, so let's see what will happen. Here I'm giving two values. Okay. So now what will happen is this first value will be applied to top and bottom, and the second value will be applied to left and right. Okay. Left and right, we get 50 pixels margin, and to the top and bottom, we have 10 pixels. Okay. That is what will happen if you have multiple values like this. So now if I also have third value, what do you think will happen now? Okay. So here if I give, what I'll do is I'll create one more paragraph. Okay, right. So now I'll give one more value after this. Here I'm going to give 100 pixels. So now what will happen is if you give three values, first value will be applied to first value will be applied to only top, second value will be applied to left and right, and the third value will be applied to bottom. First value will be applied to top, second value to left and right, and the third value will be applied to bottom. That is what will happen. So now what do you think will happen if I give four values? If I give one more style here like this, what do you think will happen now? Hmm? Let's see. Here I'll give 200 pixels. Okay. So now what will happen is first value will be applied to top, second value will be applied to right, third value will be applied to bottom, and the fourth value will be applied to left, clockwise, like this. Okay. Top, right, bottom, left. Okay. So now see here. Here I'll make this 400 pixels. So we got 400 pixels on the left side. Okay. So now similarly, I'll give 100 pixels here. This will be applied to top. Okay. So this is what will happen if you give multiple values like this. Okay. So if I only give one value, what will happen? Top. Exactly. It will be applied on all the four sides. Okay. So now 100 pixels will be applied on all the four sides. So now if I give two values, then what will happen? The first value will be applied to top and bottom. Second value will be applied to left and right. Okay. And what will happen if I give three values? So the first one will be applied to top. Second will be applied to left and right. Third will be applied to bottom. Is this clear? Any doubts still here? So here I've given 500 pixels. So it went way below, right? Anybody has any doubts still here? Any questions? Okay. So now what I'll do is we can have a border. Okay. So our paragraph, we are going to have a border. So how do we add a border? Can I directly have border width like this? If I directly give width like this, so it will not be applied, right? Because first border style is mandatory. Okay. Solid. So now you can have border width. This will be applied. Okay. So now what all different types of border styles are there? We have seen solid, dashed. This is one type dashed. Okay. We also have double. So we'll get double borders. Okay. And then we also have dotted. So now we have seen for margin, we were giving multiple values, right? So now, do you think it will work if I give multiple values for border style? So now what I want is here after this dotted, I want to have solid. Do you think it will work? Let's try. Here I am giving dotted and then solid. Can you see? The first value will be applied to top and bottom. Second value will be applied to left and right. Okay. So now I'll give solid. So now we are going to get solid on all the four sides. Similarly, I'll have dashed. So the dashed will be on. Sometimes the code pen gets stuck. Can you see? We were not able to see this dashed border because our paragraph was small. So now we can see dashed borders. Okay. Now we can clearly see dashed borders on left and right side. So now what will happen if I try to have one more value like this? After this, what will happen now? Can you see? This one is applied to top, second value is applied to left and right, and the third one is applied to bottom, right? So now what is the other type of style we have seen? Exactly, dotted. So now if I have one more value dotted, now what will happen? So it will, so always remember like clockwise, okay? Top, this will be applied to top, this will be applied to right, this will be applied to bottom and then left, okay? Always remember like that, clockwise. Is this clear? So now similarly what I want is, do you think we can also have multiple values for border width? We can, okay? So now what I want is, here I'll give 5 pixels. So the first value will be applied to top and bottom. Can you see? This 5 pixels width is applied to left and right. Okay. So we can clearly see the difference in the width, right? Left and right are much thinner than top and bottom. Okay. So now similarly here I'm going the third value. Here I'll give 20 pixels. So now this will be applied to top. This will be applied to left and right. And the third value will be applied to bottom. Okay. So now similarly, I'll give fourth value also. So it will be applied clockwise. Top 10 pixels, right 5 pixels, bottom 20 pixels, and then left 40 pixels. Is this clear? So we can do the same thing with border styles as well. First, I'll give red. So red will be applied to, sorry, it's border color. Border color. So now red will be applied to all the four sides. Okay. So now after this here, if I give green, so now what will happen? Top, bottom, red, left and right, green. Okay. So I'm not sure. You see, right also got green. Okay. So now here I'll have yellow. So first value will be applied to top. Second value will be applied to left and right. The third one will be applied to bottom. Okay. So similarly here I'll give blue. Top, right, bottom, left. Okay. Is this clear? So instead of writing all these separate values like this, what we can do is we can also have a shorthand property. Okay. So here I can just have border like this. The first value should always be the width. Okay. So here I'm giving width 1 pixels and the second value should always be the style. So border style I'm going to give solid, and the what is the next thing which is left? Color. So color I'm going to give red. Okay. Instead of writing three different properties, border width, border style, and border color, we can simply use this shorthand property. Just write border and then give three values. Okay. First should always be the width, second should be the style, and third should be the color. Okay. So if I remove border style, it, these other two will not be applied because the style is mandatory. Okay. So we can also alter with the border width. Okay. We can simply create a border using the shorthand property border. Okay. Any doubts still here? So now we are going to see something called as padding. Okay. So we are also shown you multiple values for the margin, right? We have also seen that. Okay. So now let's say there is something called as padding. So what margin is? Margin is nothing but the distance between two elements. Okay. So here, if I give margin top as let's say 100 pixels. So margin is the distance between two elements. Okay. So here, if I give margin bottom, so margin is always the distance between two elements. This is one element and this is the second element, right? It always adds space between two elements. Okay. So now anybody knows what padding is. See here, if I give padding top, what it will do is, so guys, whatever we have, this text here, this is called as content of the element. Okay. Here, this is called as the content of the element. Whatever text you have, this is called as the content of the element. And here, this is the border. Okay. So now if I give here padding top as 20 pixels, what it will do is, it will add space between the border and the content. Okay. Inside the element, it will add spaces. Okay. Always it will add space between the border and the content. Okay. So now similarly, I'll give padding left as 30 pixels. So it will add space between the border of the element and the content of the element. Clear? Okay. I'll also have padding right as let's say 50 pixels. So space will be given between the border and the content. So similarly, what I'll do, padding bottom 100 pixels. So 100 pixels will be added between the content and the border. Okay. So instead of doing something like this, I want to add padding on all the four sides. What do I do? Just padding and then here I'll give 50 pixels. So now 50 pixels will be applied on all the four sides. The space will be given between the border and the content. Is this clear to everyone? What is padding and what is margin? So many people get confused between padding and margin. Okay, but it is very simple. What is margin? Space between two elements. What is padding? It is the space between border and the content. Okay. Anybody having any doubts still here? So now what I'll do is I'll have 150 pixels. Now what will happen? 50 pixels will be added on top and bottom. 150 pixels will be added left and right. Okay. So now look at this box model. Do you guys understand this now? Now look at this and tell me, do you understand this? See here. What is the red thing? Just look at this image and tell me, is this clear? See, what is padding? It is nothing but the space between border and the content, right? So this is the padding. And what is margin? The space between two elements. Okay. So this thing is called as box model. So the same thing which we have discussed, practically implemented. So this is the picture of that. Okay. Is this image clear to everyone? If I did not give any border. Okay. So now we don't have any border. So now if I give padding top or padding left, will the padding be applied? What do you think? Yes or no? Okay, so the padding will still be applied. I'll tell you the reason why. Here I'm giving padding left. So by default, we have a border. Okay, by default, all the elements have a border. We don't get to see that. By default, all the elements have a border. Okay, we can see only if we give border style. Okay, see, I'll show you. The thing is, if we give border, we can clearly see that what is padding and what is margin. Okay. So here again, I'll give margin left as 100 pixels. Okay. So now I'll inspect on this. We can see all our elements. Okay. In our web page, here in the elements, we can see all our elements. So now I'll just click on this and select this. Okay. I'll just click on this and then hover on this. Can you see different colors here? There are different colors. Okay. So now the blue color, what is the blue color? Exactly. The blue color is the content. Okay. And the green color is the padding. Okay. And that orange color is your margin. Okay. So the thing is, without borders also you can give padding, but it will not be very clear. Okay. So now what I'll do is, to my padding, I'll just give 150 pixels. So now I'll click on this and over on this. Can you see padding is increased, the green color? Okay. So padding can still be applied if we don't give borders. Okay. But it will be little confusing. Okay. But if we have borders, then it will be clear that, okay, this thing is padding, this thing is margin. Okay. So this is also a box model. Is this clear? Okay. So now if I want to have a border, but I just want to write one line of code. What do I need to do? So we need to use this shorthand property border, right? And then what is the first value which we need to have? The first is the width. Second, we are not able to see the color. What I'll do is I'll increase the size. I'll increase the width. Okay. Right. So now if you notice, the border corners are sharp, right? The corners are sharp here. If you want to have rounded corners, then any idea of which CSS property which we need to use if we want rounded borders? So there is a CSS property called as border radius. Okay. If I give border radius as, let's say, 10 pixels, or for now I'll just give 3 pixels. If you guys notice, the corners are little bit rounded comparatively. So if I increase the value here, borders are more rounded, right? 10 pixels, they are even more rounded. I'll give 20 pixels, they are even more rounded. Okay. If you want rounded borders, you need to use the CSS property border radius. Okay. So now what you want is, you don't want rounded borders on all the four sides. Okay. So you only want the rounded border on top left, this side. So what you need to do, border top left radius, border top left radius. So now if you notice, only the top left is rounded now. The others are not rounded. They are sharp, right? So now similarly, if you want to have top right, what you need to do? Top right. Top right radius. So now we only have rounded borders on top left and top right. So now if you also want on bottom right, need to give bottom right like this. So now you have rounded borders on the bottom right as well. Is this clear how to have rounded borders? So now similarly, if you want to have rounded borders on all the